Recording in 3, 2, and 1. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL, but now we'll include the World Cup because we're going to talk a little USA today, and we like to say from a bench perspective. I'm here, Spin, and kind of sticking with that theme, I'm really hoping we don't see a repeat from 1998 to kind of give a little reference. With that said, I'm joined by, once again, one of our favorite guests, Jeremy. Good to see you again.
I thought you were going to say 1978. Was that the year of the Iranian hostage crisis? Maybe it was a few years later.
I don't want to go that far
back. Happy to be here. My other intro was going to be, today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arabic. Today I feel African.
Oh, no.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel like a migrant worker. Do you guys know that quote?
For people that don't know, that's a reference to something too.
Anyway, I didn't do it as well as
Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo.
But anyway, happy to be here. Happy to be here, guys.
All right, great. And Rex, as well. Good to see you again.
Oh, yeah, good to be here too. And I feel happy that we have a lot of soccer. So
yeah, he feels like a migrant worker today, Rex.
We're trying to fit this in because we just had the first round of games to go through, and US obviously kicks off coming up, so we'll try to get through this pretty quickly. But before we do, we'll kind of do what we've done in the past. We'll do a quick story of the week, and then kind of just get into to the US and England game, and then kind of go from there. So, Jeremy, what do you have first?
Oh, story of the week. Yeah, for me, it's just this. We're going to get into this, but this Iran-U.S. clash, just how much political tension spilling over. I don't know about the two of you, but I do have some mixed feelings about even watching some of these games and whether I should be contributing my almighty dollar to this cause. But yeah, I think the story is just the fact that I think.
Uh-oh. Jeremy, you good?
Jeremy's gone.
Oh no!
I thought it was my headset for a second.
Okay,
there he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just kind of cut out for a second.
Oh no! Okay, you know what? I think it's because I said the word Iran. Let me.
They're watching. Yeah.
Iran.
Iran.
Let me do it. Let me just pick another story so I don't get censored at the moment. For me, the story that's right now, actually, can you all hear me right now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
This has been a really exciting tournament. I mean, other than the mixed feelings we might have watching the spectacle, I think I was texting Ben about this the other day. I feel like international football is in a really good moment right now, just in terms of the quality we see on the pitch. Mm-hmm. It actually looks like some of these teams are playing club football. There's pressing, there's organization, and I don't know. I've never been a fan of international football going back a decade or more. I've always felt it was kind of an inferior version of the club game, especially the product that we were getting in the middle of the last decade, where it seemed like Guardiola and Klopp. But now, I mean, it's really compelling. I feel like the Euros last year really set the bar, and now since then we're seeing some more of that. It's not perfect. There's definitely been some drab games. There's been plenty of 0-0s, but
it's woken up. It's woken up this past in the second week or the second match of games. I definitely say.
So that's my story. Yeah, very happy.
I like that. Rex, what you got?
Yeah, well, those early games, too, have been awesome recently. But I'm going with kind of a tale of two games for a lot of teams here. We know that they only basically had a week before their first game at most to practice together. And some of these teams came out flat in the first game and then really impressed in the second game to kind of get things back on track. Obviously, we had Argentina losing to Saudi Arabia. They come back and beat Mexico 2-0. Costa Rica was another one, just got destroyed by Spain, came back and beat Japan. Iran got destroyed by England, come back and beat Wales. And you have some other teams too. Australia, obviously they played Tunisia and came back and beat them after losing to France in the opener. And then Poland, Croatia, Morocco, they all tied their first game, come back and win the second game. So some of these teams maybe it took a little bit more time to get used to playing with each other and kind of get each other's chemistry down. So yeah, man, it is starting to pick up. And man, these groups are really tight too. I can't remember the groups being this tight coming into the final day.
I was wondering about
games.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's just like living in the moment, but I mean, it like this group that just finished. I mean, that everything was tight. Like everyone had points. I mean, Qatar was the only team not making it out. But other groups, all 4 teams are still alive in. It's kind of it's scary if your team's in that group for sure, but it's really fun for the neutral.
We've got a lot of fun storylines for this final group stage. I mean, Messi versus Lua, and I guess maybe both of those teams have a something on the line there. I think Poland can advance if they beat Argentina. I think the funny thing is Uruguay versus Ghana in kind of a rematch from 2010 when Suarez had that weird handball that basically prevented a goal and then got a missed
That's
PK.
right. And Gian missed the PK.
Yeah.
How quickly into that game, assuming Suarez does start, how quickly into that game do you think a Ghanaian player just gets a yellow card?
It really is well that Suarez is probably going to start, or at least come on the field. Just kind of goes. I mean, I think it was like 2010. So, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of going to move away from the international football because something crazy happened yesterday. I don't know if you guys were following with Juventus. But basically, they're bored, and I think the president voluntarily left because they were about to face like serious fraud charges, trying to hide like hundreds of millions of debt on the books. And the thing I immediately thought about was Juventus was basically the third holdout from the Super League with like Real Madrid and Barca. And I'm just kind of thinking, there's this narrative going around that everyone's just comparing Ronaldo's legacy and Messi's, and I think it's going to come to a time when people are writing quote unquote these legacies that a chapter or two is going to have to go down to the wage structure and how both of these players might have really screwed these two clubs over in Barcelona and Juventus, and it's looking like Juventus is in serious trouble right now. And another thing too I was thinking about is this was maybe in the behind scenes one of the reasons why the Super League was forming because a lot of these clubs were in serious debt issues. And one of the things for joining the Super League was getting something like $1 billion bonus, or it was some high fee, and that would have obviously gone to wipe out the debt. So I think there's a little nefarious activity going around, and this has been going on for not just a couple years, not even before COVID. I think I saw 2017 or 2018. And so I just kind of thought that was wild. I mean, another thing that's happened too in the last week or so is Man United and Liverpool are up for sale. Now, so we're seeing a little change in the club structure while this is going on.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Just kind of wanted to get
That's
that out there. Yeah, were you guys following that at all?
No, I didn't, but I just looked it up. Nedved, accidentally, all them out. That's very fascinating, but I haven't kept up with it. Good time to be watching international soccer then.
I think so for some of those. So. I know, Jeremy, your time is kind of short, so we'll just immediately go to USA England, and just kind of just start off with really your takes. I mean, were you bearish going into this game? Was this kind of what you expected? Super shock. All the above. What were you thinking?
I'll tell you what I was. I listened to this great show called The Reserve Squad, and I listened to some of the takes, and I saw everybody around me being very bearish, saying that this England team was so mighty after they beat Iran 6-1. 6-1 was 6-2. I can't remember what it was.
I think it was 6-2.
6-2. And everybody's thinking that this is going to be a repeat of the 2014 semifinal, Brazil and Germany. Barca, Bayern, just expecting that. And I listened to your podcast, and you guys made some great points about England's performance in the Nations League, and maybe we don't let the previous game dictate exactly England's true level. And I think Iran probably I'm going to say Iran. I think Iran probably had some issues that their thoughts may have been back home. They've been distracted. I heard some comments. There was some booing at the stadium in that game, but not at the next game they played against Wales. So I guess I would say I was a little bearish, but less bearish than I normally would have. And I was pleasantly surprised. We can get on to some of the problems with U.S. attack, and we definitely are going to need that if we take 3 points here, which we need. But I thought that the game plan was really, really good. I was very pleased to see a setup at a 4-4-2. I was very glad to see that Luke Shaw and Kieran Trippier, who pretty much destroyed Iran, were nullified. And Ben's going to touch on this. I know certainly. But England's midfield, Declan Rice, who at coming out of that first game looked like maybe one of the stars of the tournament. pretty much invisible. So I was pleased to see U.S.'s performance in that game.
Yeah. I mean, Rex, what were you thinking? We'll just kind of bounce off.
Well, I'm gonna go out wide. I was super worried about Saka and Sterling and their pace out wide, and yeah, it was really nice to see USA really shut them down for the most part. They've been just sparkling players, and they're super fast. I know Sterling hasn't played that well for Chelsea yet, but he's still got loads of pace. And then Saka, was fantastic in the first game against Iran. So I was really worried about those two guys, and we really shut them down. It was really nice to see. And a lot of England's attack can come out wide, and then you kind of cross it back into Kane. And if you shut out the out wide outlets, then we saw Kane being forced to drop deeper and deeper,
Yeah.
just to try to get in the game and try to get touches. And sometimes that works for Kane if he can kind of pick out Sterling and Saka running off of him. But we shut that down in this game, and it was awesome to see. I know, yeah, like Jeremy said, we're going to get into, I mean, the attack for USA, decent amount of shots, but only one on target. We'll get into that later, but at least we have a good, solid. It seems like we have a good, solid defensive setup, and I mean, we're going to need it against Iran because they've scored some goals here. They scored 4 goals, I think, so we're going to need it, and that's the one good part. And being able to nullify Saka and Sterling, you would think we'd be able to hopefully nullify, Azuman and Taremi up top, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
those are definitely the two to watch out for. I mean, the thing that was really wild is I personally didn't notice the formation change. Like Jeremy texted, and I really thought he was getting fooled by the way like
Just
Pulisic was
telling you.
playing. But even the announcers kind of mentioned it. So I mean, just to see Haji Wright start was an absolute shock to me. And
Hmm.
he only had I think 19 touches overall. But I actually really liked what he did when he did have the ball. Also, he was very good. Well, Jeremy mentioned Declan Rice. One thing that I do think that maybe it was a tactic Berhalter instructed was him and Tim Weah were playing very close to each other. Weah wasn't just playing out wide when England were trying to build up, and they were trying to cut off that pass into Declan Rice. And one of the reasons why England really struggled, at least in that first half, was they couldn't really get him the ball because Mason Mount and Jude Bellingham were kind of too far upfield. And once you were cutting off that, the only outlets were really out wide. And so England were very, very safe, very horizontal. But frankly, see, I don't know whether to overreact or not because we saw this from England in the Euros for Scotland. I think it was their second game as well. When I think that one was also 0-0. It's just sometimes this is how they like playing. Um, but looking at the touches by Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, it was 104 and 99 and 90 passes versus Iran for 70 and 56 for US and then versus US and then for Bellingham he had 113 touches with 92 passes versus Iran and he only had 50 touches in this game.
Wow.
And what's wild is one of the first things that Southgate did was he took Bellingham off for Henderson, and it seemed
Yeah.
the idea was to help give basically allow there to be a second option when they were trying to build from the back. And so another thing that was wild was when you heard Gareth Southgate in his post game when he was asked, why did he bring on Grealish? He said that um, you know we were suffocating them essentially. They were. I mean, we had one period in that second half where I think we had like five corner kicks in maybe 5 minutes, and our biggest issue at that point was just trying to get a ball past Harry Maguire. Um, but we were absolutely dominating at that point in the second half as well. It wasn't like with Wales. We were strong in the first half with Wales, and then we kind of petered out. In this one, we were good. I want to say 80% of the game or so. Um,
Yeah.
and one thing that was interesting was he said he brought Grealish on just to relieve pressure, maybe buy some fouls, which was when you're up a goal, that makes sense to me. When you maybe need a goal, that didn't. And so that was almost like an admission that they didn't care about winning the game. They didn't want to lose it at that point. And to hear that
Mhm.
from England versus us, after seeing
Yeah.
the way we played versus Japan and Saudi Arabia in that friendly window a couple weeks ago, was absolutely wild to me. And so, in some ways, we should maybe not be too surprised by this because I think the times when we have seen Musa, Adams, and McKennie play fully fit and healthy, I think back to that game versus Mexico. We have looked like a proper side. It's just we haven't necessarily had. It's been too far and few between. And really, it seems like that's our engine. That midfield is our engine. Now, it's maybe not the most creative. You kind of mentioned how we have been struggling to score, but at least in that end with midfield, we've got the U.S. has a legit three in midfield that are European grade midfielders, and I think you could
Yeah.
maybe say that about the fullbacks. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's an exaggeration at the moment. And so I can't recall us being this good collectively.
Mhm.
Maybe just individually as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are the things that kind of showed up to me.
Mm.
And so I don't know. I didn't want to. I don't want to just kind of talk to myself. I mean, Jeremy did mention some of the tactics. What do you think we could have done better, or what do you think we should do versus Iran to at least get a couple more shots on goal at least? Because for as dominant as we've looked in these two games, or at least and I want to say 3 out of 4 halves, we still haven't really put enough shots together. So what
Mhm.
do you think is missing?
Yeah. Those were all both of you great thoughts. Some of those things I hadn't thought of before. One thing I wanted to add just before I get to this, and I'll sign off after this moment, but is last time I was on here, we talked about how quickly the U.S. tired themselves out, and I feel like this change of formation with McKennie moving out wide, they kind of played a little bit like Simeone's Atletico Madrid, where those two forwards kind of tuck inside, and the midfield four are really just they're all like central midfielders, Pulisic aside. So it really covers the width, like Rex mentioned, the width of the pitch so well. And I think what allowed the U.S. to do is just not do as much running. Like you've pretty much in a midfield three, you're constantly having to cover out wide to like the touchline. And when you've got a flat four there, you're able to. There's just a lot less running to do. So that stood out to me. As for the Iran game, I think my biggest concern is that if obviously this is probably not the formation that we would want to use because we did sacrifice an attacker or move Pulisic a bit deeper. My only concern is that I don't want to repeat what happened in the Wales game, which is that we go back to that midfield three, we outgun them, outpress them for a half, we don't get a goal, or we get in the case of the Wales game, we got a goal, but then we really succumb in the second half because I think Iran can really hit us with those direct balls over the top. They've got a lot of pace, they've got a lot of finishing.
Mhm.
So for me, it's almost less of a formation or a personnel issue. It's more of a strategy issue. I do think that Reyna probably if this is a game that he's going to play and start in, this is probably it. I also think that if this is a game that we're going to be missing someone like Pepe, this is unfortunately the game where it really does show up.
Yeah.
But I do think that I think a lot of this is really just going to come down to how we approach it and whether we really want to expend ourselves in that first half chasing a goal and almost it not coming and then having to suffer because look at the Wales game. Iran held. Granted, Wales never really put on the pressure that USA did, but Iran really looked energetic in that second half, and I think that. There's probably something to be said for the climate there. There's probably something to be said for the proximity. Teams tend to perform well when they're playing inside their own continent. It's a known fact. And I think the USA needs to be aware that there are some conditions, some factors that are going to lead them to have to approach this game a little bit more safely than they did in the first game. So not a great answer, but I just think that really it's a mindset thing here. And I'm usually not a mindset kind of person.
Mhm.
And Rex, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've been listening to Clint Dempsey, and he kind of, I mean, I kind of agree with him where he's like, we got to get Aronson on the pitch. We have to have him starting because we need our best players out there. And we've been kind of trying to figure out where we could fit everyone in. And I kind of am jumping on Dempsey's side here. And Dempsey, what he wants is he wants Weah to be your striker and Weah to be your number 9. He's willing to make runs. I know he's not necessarily big, but he's fast. He's willing to make runs. And then you have Aronson as your right wing and Pulisic as your left wing. I don't know if you could kind of even do. We talked about like the false 9 kind of. But that's what Dempsey wants to see. He just thinks Aronson's too good to be on the bench. The flip side is it's nice to have a really good sub like that to bring off, and Reyna as well possibly. So I don't know. I'm looking for maybe like a little tweak like that possibly. I don't know. The experts kind of tend to think that Iran is going to sit back and let us have the majority of the ball, and then obviously try to counter, which they're fantastic at doing. I mean, they kind of ripped Wales apart at that. So, we should have the majority of the ball. It's just going to be, can we break them down? And I think a player like Aronson being on the pitch for, at least starting, being on the pitch for 70, 80 minutes, he could really help us break down, a team that's setting up defensively. Reyna too. So maybe we'll see something like that. But, really the only question mark I think is, besides formation, is who's going to play our striker spot.
Yeah.
And we just, I don't know. I mean, because Sargent had like 19 touches last week too, Ben, and then Haji Wright had like 19 this week.
It was about the same. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe it's like a surface problem at that point, because you got two different strikers and they both get, less than 20 touches. Maybe it's a surface. We're not surfacing them the ball enough.
That's what I want to focus on, because I've been one of those that has wanted maybe Weah to kind of play in the middle too. But the more I think about it, our best crosser of the ball, I think by far, is Weah. Maybe Robinson or Dest, but for the last two games, you think of like the best chance that we had in this game, it was that cross, it was that McKinney chance. That ball came from Weah. When Sargent basically hit the post, before that there was a cross in that was almost an own goal that came from Weah. I think Weah wide is maybe our best bet. You think of the way, and I think of the way England scored their first goal versus Iran. It was basically Jude Bellingham making a disguised late run, and Jude Bellingham's got pretty good size, and he was able to get on a good cross from Shaw. I could see maybe McKinney kind of being able to create something like that. I think McKinney offers that when he plays for Juventus. So I'm kind of in between. I frankly want to see the same formation, because one thing I'm really worried about, if we do kind of go back to a 4-3-3, I think what that kind of lends ourselves to being vulnerable on our fullbacks going high, with Dest and Anthony Robinson. And one of the things that I was really scared or worried about, was the couple times when Pulisic did lose the ball when Robinson was kind of high upfield, where England were able to break. And if it wasn't for Tyler Adams being insanely good in the box, being able to shut down Kane or shut down, might have been Saka, that could have hurt us. And so you look at how Iran was able to beat Wales. Essentially, they were waiting for any kind of loose pass or mispossession, and they were immediately getting the ball to their strikers. And the two strikers they have, one plays for Porto and one plays for Bayern Leverkusen. Now, I don't know about there were other players, but at least if they can get it to those guys, they can cause some damage. So I would prefer us to play whatever formation that would allow those two fullbacks to be a little bit more defensive minded than necessarily being forced to offer the width. So I would kind of like to see us keep to this 4-2-2 kind of formation, frankly, because you can get that from the midfielders instead. But
yeah, like McKinney or Pulisic coming back and helping out your fullbacks.
Because another thing that was interesting, I don't know if you guys noticed this, I thought Dest was kind of almost playing in a back three at times. And I don't know if that was necessarily done because Walker Zimmerman has some issues when he has the ball still. I mean, Walker Zimmerman almost gave the game away. In the dying minutes, because he gave the ball to Grealish, and then Musa fouled Grealish, and that was probably England's best chance of the game when they were able to send a ball in that the Kane almost got on the end of. Thankfully, he hit it wide. But one thing I definitely noticed was it seemed there was a difference when Shaq Moore came on as opposed to Dest, and I think Dest was at least maybe a security blanket almost. He wasn't necessarily as going forward as much as possible, as much as we saw maybe versus Wales. I don't think maybe because McKinney was able to kind of offer that. And so, I don't know. Those were kind of things I was thinking about. I do think we'll eventually see Gio or Brendan Aronson. Kind of, I mean, we saw that a little bit against England. I mean, the one negative, you kind of mentioned it too, is the one negative to our midfield is maybe we don't have a killer passer in there. I think Luca Tellatore is supposed to kind of be that player too. But I don't think we're going to see him.
Probably not.
So it might just come down to maybe being able to get something on a set piece. Which unfortunately we've been very, very bad at this tournament. But I feel like we're getting closer. Pulisic had much better delivery in this game than he did versus Wales, and
we caused some trouble. Yeah,
I don't think Iran has Harry Maguire. So if you can get the same kind of service to Zimmerman or Ream, I kind of fancy our chances to at least get something.
Okay, I like the fact that a draw doesn't get us in, so we actually have to score a goal, and we actually have to go for it. Yeah, I think that will help us, hopefully.
That's a great point, Rex. Yeah, because I wonder if we may have been in our own heads with a draw. And
Hmm.
I think that us playing it safe is potentially not our strongest suit. Maybe it did work against England, although I think we could argue that were we really playing it safe? We were just trying to nullify their strengths. But I think
Right.
that I like the U.S. in the position of having to go for the one here,
Mhm.
which may lend itself to actually us putting on the gas early on. So hopefully we don't have that let up
I
the
mean,
second half.
Yeah.
it's crazy how you look back to that. I think I saw something online where like our last 10 games away from U.S. grounds, we've maybe scored like one goal in those 10 games. Like we just have not done well away from home in qualifying
Mhm.
or in friendlies or just in general. And so that's kind of nerving too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We spurned some good chances. And we're not most of the time we're not even putting them on target. I mean, I think we have 2 shots on target for through these 2 games, 16 shots overall, and only 2 on target. So that's like 8 shots, one on target per game on average for these 2 games, which isn't it's just not good enough if you want to advance.
yeah, I mean, Will quickly. I guess before Jeremy kind of leaves, um, what were your thoughts on Haji Wright? I mean, do you think maybe
Yeah,
someone else would have done a better job, or did you kind of like what you saw?
I'm with you. I'm with your comments. I really like the fact that he did that hard defensive work, and I think he was put in that position. I think also the fact that he does got a little bit of pace and can stretch the field. I think that
Hmm.
there was some hope there. Um, yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't know if he's like Rex was saying. Some of the pundits. I don't know if he's probably deserving of the start. I don't know if this is the right kind of game for him. We're not going to need that kind of defensive work and stretching of the field because we're probably going to have the majority of the ball.
Might be an
But
aerial threat.
but as an aerial threat, you're right. As an aerial threat, maybe this is the game where having somebody who's what is he 6'3", 6'4"?
He's,
Uh,
yeah, he looks big.
Yeah.
yeah, it looks get big. Yeah, I've got to head out of here, guys. But once again, it was a pleasure. Uh, I will say that if I am to make a bold prediction, I think the U.S. wins 2-1 today.
Ooh, I like
Ooh,
that.
if they,
Hope that happens.
hopefully we have the 2 goals before Iran gets that one because that'll be quite nervy.
I want to hear
Gosh,
yours.
yeah.
Before I go, I know you guys are going to keep talking Iran and U.S., but are either of you going to stick your neck out?
I'll say 1-0, but Turner makes like 10 saves. I think.
Yeah, I think.
A 1-0 Iran win. Okay, that's
I
tough.
think
Yeah.
I do fear like it's gonna require Turner making a bunch of saves. I think we'll be on the back foot a little bit more than we want to be in that second half.
Mhm. I'll probably go
Rex?
1-0. Yeah, 1-0 USA. Hopefully we can score more, but there's just nothing in the 2 games so far that really shows me that they can score more than one goal. So yeah, I'm gonna go 1-0 and hope that yeah. I mean, like Ben said, Matt Turner is going to have to be huge, and the good thing so far is he might not have to do much this game either. But the last couple games he hasn't done much, and then when he's called on to make a big save, he's still focused and he makes a big save. It could be kind of the same situation here, but at least he's not going to lose his focus. And you can count on him for big saves, and he was good with his feet too against England. He had a couple good balls, so yeah, the pressure's going to be on him for sure. I think he'll stand up to it. The big question for me is, can we break down Iran and can we actually get our strikers more chances and actually put some of these shots on target today?
Best and McKennie both score. That's my prediction there. All right,
I hope so.
I like it.
I'll talk to you guys next week.
All
All right, man.
right, see you, Jeremy. Thanks.
Yeah, have a good one. That is it.
All right, I hope that happens.
Yeah, I mean one thing I was kind of in the back of my mind was should we just kind of delay doing the show till tomorrow to kind of talk about both because we're gonna get done filming, and the game's gonna happen, and then everything we say will be kind of pointless. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have
Well,
any other like thoughts before we kind of get into it a little bit? Um,
well, I mean, I'm super nervous because I know like Iran that first game against England was kind of that's not the way Iran plays. It's more kind of like the Wales game is the kind of Iranian team that we should expect. So it's going to be close. If you're a casual soccer fan, you're looking at it like Iran, but they're good. They're a good team. They're ranked pretty high in FIFA. They're like 20th, and that's for a good reason. And I mean, Taremi, he's on fire. He's got 2 goals and an assist. Him alone has scored more goals than the United States team has. So
they had.
we're gonna have our work cut out. I'm super nervous. I think we'll be okay.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think I hope we win, but I think we'll be okay. But we're gonna have to have either more chances or with the limited chances we get, we're going to have to be more clinical and score on them because if we come out and have 10 shots and one on target, that kind of is looking like a draw to me. So either more shots or you're going to have to be more clinical with the limited amount of shots you get. You're going to have to bury some of them, especially if we're on top of the game. Because, I mean, it's kind of like the Wales game where first half we were on top. We did score a goal, but, if we score two, maybe that's a win. And we're not really desperate in this Iranian game. We're not super nervous about it.
Well, another thing too is you kind of worry because it is quote unquote a young team, and we've said our piece about a Berhalter. Uh, but I don't want us to do what we saw Canada do, where
Hmm.
Canada got the early goal and then they stayed open that entire. Now we necessarily, I feel like we have a better midfield than that, so I don't think that would necessarily be our case. But I would worry about our mindset actually if we got an early goal, to be honest. And
Hmm.
that's kind of crazy to say, uh, but I just kind of do a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, we blew the Wales game, so I kind of feel the same way. If we if we're up 1-0, I'd be feeling kind of nervous that we'd blow that one too, because there's nothing that says like we can hold on to a lead. I mean, I know it's a small sample size, 2 games in the World Cup, but the 1-0 lead, we let that evaporate. So yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Sitting on a 1-0 lead early, I feel like maybe we would have a bad second half again, and then draw the game, and then we're out.
Yeah, because I like one thing that's wild is with Wales, Iran didn't just beat Wales because there was a red card and they got two very late goals. I think it was like the 90 plus eight when they scored their
Mhm.
first. And then there was a breakaway because Wales were open. Um, they had 21 shots that game, and frankly,
Yeah.
before the goal came, they had a couple. I think they hit the post twice. They were actually very threatening from outside from distance. They had two guys with the shots basically outside the box that either drew a really good save by Hennessy or at least hit the post.
Hmm.
So we can't just. It's gonna be different. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's just kind of it's absolutely crazy how we've spent the last ever since like the draw was announced. I want to say 98% of our focus has been talking about or
Hmm.
maybe Wales for the first game. There's been very little
Hmm.
talk about Iran, and we
Yeah.
kind of worry a little bit about that. Though the last couple of days, that has certainly changed because I don't know if you Jeremy kind of mentioned it a little bit. There's been a little turmoil here and there. It seems like everyone
Yeah.
in the world has decided to give Iran players and coaching staff all the bulletin board material in the world. Jurgen Klinsmann was on like BBC and basically just talked about how Iran are dirty and it's their character to like cheat, which wasn't great. And then our social media team decided to like edit out their flag,
Mhm.
and that's drawn some complaints, and it's just
Well,
poking the
the
bear
thing that
here.
sucked. Yeah, well, and also what happened is the press conference yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but like Berhalter, but I don't care if Berhalter's necessarily under the gun. But some of our players, like Adams, is 21 years old, and apparently like state-sponsored new Iranian news networks like were coming in, flocking to ask like really hard questions to Adams, even though Adams and the United States soccer team, the players and the coach, they don't have anything to do with the social media post.
Hmm.
And like one of the guys was basically saying, you talk about Iran having, a bunch of discrimination and things like that, prejudice, and he was like, well, USA has that too. And if you're an African American playing in a country that has traditionally for a long time been super racist to a lot of people. He was kind of like it's the same thing, and Tyler Adams had a really good response. He was really composed. I kept forgetting he was only 21 years old, but he was basically like, you have to do what you have to do, and maybe we can be examples for kids that aren't being treated well, and look how far we've come.
Hmm.
But it was just kind of annoying because I also kind of feel like Iran wanted to make this bulletin board material
I think
because
so. Yeah.
at the end of the day, though, like the USA players, they didn't have anything to do with this.
No,
The
but
coaches, the
so,
staff, they don't have anything to do with this.
someone inside the federation does, which is a problem.
Right.
And
Whoever
why
is doing the social media for United States, I
they
guess.
should at least get some kind of reprimand because they did that without. at least maybe Berhalter lied, but they apparently did that without anyone in the team knowing, or
Right.
get any kind of a any kind of a foreknowledge. And
So I guess.
it's a distraction. You don't need
Mhm.
that distraction right now. You mentioned there was a press conference yesterday. They didn't talk about football. They talked about that.
Right, and that
So
worries me for sure. But maybe I don't know. You never know this stuff. Like the Canada coach said some stuff
and it
like,
backfired. That's why I'm worried
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
I
and it backfired. So you just never know. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. I don't know. But maybe this will kind of motivate the USA players because they were getting grilled, and they're kind of like, all right, let's just go out on the pitch and shut them up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're not like if you're not into the World Cup news, basically, USA Twitter posted. I guess it was the standings of the group and Iran's flag. They left off the emblem and the I guess it's writing down below the emblem, and they just took that off, kind of in protest of Iran's like terrible rights movement there, and
Mhm.
just history of disrespecting people there as well. So that was kind of why they took it off, and obviously Iran had a big problem with that, and kind of came down on USA and the players, even though, like I said, it wasn't their fault. But they did well, and I was really impressed with Adams. If you have a chance, listeners, to listen to it, he sounded really composed. He sounded smart, and I think you'll forget that he's only 21 years old. I wouldn't have been that composed
Mhm.
at 21. So yeah, it was impressive to see, that kind of resiliency, and he didn't really back down from the questioning. So hopefully, it'll kind of translate to that kind of style on the pitch for the whole team. I'm not worried about Adams; he always plays that way, but maybe the whole team can kind of ride it too.
And one final thought before we finally move on from this. This is why the whole idea of stick to sports. I know that that's been like a refrain from some people. Some people like to kind of have that as a philosophy. You can't do it. Uh,
Mm,
Sports and culture really do intertwine with each other,
yeah,
and
it stinks
it's
because
just
sometimes I just want to watch the soccer game, and you're the same. Like, if I want to listen to politics, I'll turn on the news. I just want to watch soccer, but it just adds more to the background, and the fact that, like, yeah, it's soccer teams and sports teams, but there's a lot of real life things going on too. Like, obviously, Iran and the U.S. tensions are super high, and we're gonna be playing each other also in a winner stays on kind of thing. Um, so yeah, like you said, like politics will always
eh,
come into the forefront sometimes, especially when it's like two countries that really don't like each other and are rivals.
and Iran
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
and Iran's players are under some serious. If you believe the reporting now, I think I saw CNN reporting this, so I do kind of take it with a grain of salt. But their players are under pressure to not speak out in support of the protests happening. Like their families have been threatened. Now again,
Yeah.
that is just what our media are saying. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But it was interesting. Jeremy kind of mentioned it for the first game. I think for Wales, it might have been the first game. Anyways, one of the games they played, their team did not sing the national anthem.
Yeah,
Um,
it
okay,
was the first game. It was the England game.
saying
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So
yeah, in
I don't
Purples.
know if there was a change with Wales. That would probably be what I'll be watching today. To be honest, just kind of just immediately, because one of the guys that was basically the star that came on versus Wales, the Bayern Leverkusen striker, he was one of the more vocal advocates in support of the women's rights that were protesting. And there was
Mm.
talks that maybe Iran's government wanted him to not be included in the squad. Um,
Yeah, maybe they're putting pressure on. Who knows?
yeah, so
Crazy.
there's just a lot of stuff happening. It's pressure enough to play in the World Cup to perform. Iran has a
Mm.
chance to advance too, as well.
Yeah,
It's worth saying that as well.
and the
But
Iranian players have all that political unrest on their shoulders too. That's a good point to like bring up and kind of remember that too. That and they're not like kind of like the media was kind of questioning and taking out kind of their frustrations about the tweet on the USA players. The Iranian players aren't they're not the problem in Iran either. So they're just trying to play, I guess for their country, but the parts of the country, that are worth playing for. And it seems like a lot of those players kind of want the situation to change in Iran too. So I feel bad for the Iranian players in that sense because they are kind of maybe made to be bad guys are kind of vilified just because of
Hmm.
they're Iran, but the players themselves aren't part of the problem in my opinion. So it's another thing to like remember. They're playing and there's a ton of unrest back home, and that's going to be weighing on their minds as well.
And so we will move on to break down the USA England game. We'll start with the lineups. Um, there's still maybe a little bit debate, but I do think Jeremy was right. It was a 4-4-2 in the end with Dest, Zimmerman, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson. No surprise there. McKinney, Adams, Musa, Pulisic, and then Weah and Haji Wright. And we kind of spoke about it a little bit, but I'll give you another chance if you want to say something else. I mean, seeing Haji Wright really was an absolute shock to me. I think I
Mhm.
texted something saying like, "I'll give Berhalter a little credit here. A month ago, no one in the world would have been able to predict this lineup
Yeah,
because we
I know
just
it's
yeah,
crazy.
and to play Haji Wright in quote unquote our most important game. Now, obviously, Iran would be the most important game
Mm.
that we played in I don't know 8 years. And it's just we didn't give him any kind of run through with the squad at all, except for maybe like 30 minutes versus Morocco in a friendly.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah, and he had what 10 minutes in the Wales game, maybe at the end, maybe not even 10 minutes.
right. So
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
I mean, it was just it worked out in the end. Well, I mean, maybe you can say that. I mean, it was just interesting to see if they even knew how he played.
I know,
It's
yeah.
one thing to train with him, but yeah, I agree with kind of Jeremy. I thought he didn't have as many touches, but he did very good defensively, and I thought he did a decent job offering himself as a presence. And when he did, the few chances he did get the ball, I thought his layoff passes were good, had good weight to him, and I thought he had a couple really clever turns, and
Yeah.
he looked quick. He didn't look like he had heavy feet, and he didn't look
Mhm.
like he was nervous. So
Yeah.
that's maybe one positive to kind of go with. Um, and I mean, we'll kind of I like what you said here. You like how you thought Weah and Wright together was just a really good combo. Do you want to kind of maybe touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of like the old days where you had Olivia Giroud and Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal, and one guy
Hmm.
is a huge target guy, good in the air, and the other one is a super quick, super shifty kind of speedster guy. And you kind of put them up top together, and it really works because you got the best of both worlds. You got a really good aerial target, and then you have a really fast guy that's athletic, good with a ball at his feet, and he's willing to make runs, take players on. It's just a good combo.
Hmm.
And it gives us more options because Weah can make runs in behind, or if nothing's going on, Weah can drift wide. Haji Wright goes central, and we kind of swing in a good ball because he's big, and I think he's good in the air. I mean, he had one hitter chance in this England game. But yeah, I mean, I like that combo. The only thing is I was hoping it would produce, I guess, just more opportunities for our strikers because,
Hmm.
like we mentioned, they're just not getting the touches. And when it's Sargent one day and then Wright the other, I start to think that it's maybe not the strikers' problem. I mean, they've had some chances that they've missed for sure, but maybe they're getting starved of service. And maybe this was part of Berhalter being like, hey, he's a target guy. Let's just pump the crosses into him, maybe. But you really didn't see a lot of that, so I don't know. It was surprising, and I mean, it's gonna be the lineup is coming out here probably in like 10 minutes, and I'm really excited to see what Berhalter's gonna do. With the formation and also the players, we'll see. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, to play like Reyna and Aronson, so I don't know if that'll happen or not. And I don't know if we'll see Wright. Who knows? But at the worst, maybe he's a power sub, and he's gotten some minutes in the World Cup now, and that's going to be big for a young squad. In 4 years, hopefully. So it's all a growing process, and the more we play, the more we learn, and the more we grow. So hopefully
Hmm.
we can win and get at least another game in for these guys. I think if we won and England won, then we'd probably be playing Netherlands. I think
Yes.
if we so not great, but it's a learning experience for all these younger players, and just to make it out of the group at the combined age that this team is would be awesome, and awesome and just experience really alone.
Just to advance. I think that has to be the target. And
Hmm.
one thing I didn't know until I was watching the Ecuador Senegal game earlier is the yellow cards don't get wiped out.
Oh, they don't.
So we have like 4 or 5 guys because of that Wales game
Oof.
still on
Yeah.
yellows. So if we do beat Iran, that'll be something to maybe pay attention to.
Like our whole midfield, I think, is on a yellow card.
Yeah, and I
Well,
think
that's stupid. I wonder why they don't
I
get
think
white.
our whole back line is too.
That's stupid.
From what I recall,
I wonder why they don't get white
it
down.
gets wiped out after that round. So
Yeah,
after the
right.
first, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I guess after 4 games
that's
played.
pretty annoying. I mean, the Gio Reyna thing is interesting because you kind of mentioned it in the script as well. There's been a little drama there. This the little spat by former Eric Ronaldo. Do you want to maybe touch up on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I just I guess before I start, I don't want to say I necessarily believe this,
Hmm.
because you kind of put in the script like Winalda has never been a supporter of Berhalter, so there's kind of ulterior motives here for Winalda to kind of have a crack at Berhalter,
I think so.
and this is like really I looked into it, and Winalda's the only one that was really reporting this, but Winalda is saying that Berhalter lied to the media and saying that Gio Reyna was hurt. And not only that, but he went to Reyna and asked Reyna to cover the lie for him if he was asked about it. And then Winaldo goes on to say that the USA team really wants Gio Reyna to start or at least play more. And so they're kind of mad about that. And then they find out that, Berhalter possibly was lying to the media about him being hurt. And then the fact that he asked Reyna possibly to cover for this injury just puts more friction with the team and Berhalter, and couple that with the fact that the team wants Gio to start.
Hmm.
Basically, Ronaldo's saying there's friction there because of this, and he says he has an inside locker room source, but it could be. I mean, even if it's in quotes true, I don't know. I take it with a grain of salt because his locker room source that he won't identify. I'm pretty sure it is Gio Reyna's dad, Claudio Reyna,
Claudio,
because
yeah.
they've played together. And even in the article I was reading, Winalda basically said that I've been talking with Gio's dad about the situation and kind of trying to console him. So maybe it's a little slanted there because maybe like this info is coming from Gio Reyna to Claudio Reyna, then to Winalda. I don't know. But like I said, Winalda's the only one reporting this. And Ben, you put in the script, don't forget Berhalter and Reyna don't like each other. Berhalter and Winalda don't
Ronaldo,
like each other.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
because Ronaldo,
I don't know if that's
Ronaldo
mhm.
ran for U.S. President a couple years back,
Right.
and he was someone on Twitter basically asked him, what are your thoughts on Berhalter? And basically he just said, I never would have hired him in the first place,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
was interesting to say. It's interesting to be public about that too. Uh,
Yeah, at the time especially. But yeah, so maybe not true. I don't know. But this is more stuff that's like if it's not true, why are you creating more drama? Like,
well, okay,
this is the team you played for. Like,
yeah,
no more drama. We already have enough stuff we're dealing with.
true. I mean, but that said, do you want to see Gio Reyna either start or at least come on early in the second half?
Yeah, but honestly, I'd rather see Aronson start or play more than Reyna. First off,
Hmm.
so like if Gio started, I'd be happy. But if he started over Weah or if he started over Aronson, I don't know. But with that being said, I do think Gio needs to play more. He didn't play at all in the first game. I'd like to see him play maybe 20 minutes in that Wales game, maybe 20 to 30 in the England game, and then again 30 minutes maybe off the bench here. So not necessarily starting because I'd rather have like Aronson or Weah starting ahead of Gio, but I do think he needs to play a little bit more.
Personally, I'd like to see us stick with a 4-4-2. Basically, do exactly what we did. Play basically the entire same team, and then maybe in the 65th minute, if it's still kind of level, take McKennie off of Gio Reyna, and then kind of put him as
Mm,
like that right midfielder, but almost give him like a free role. Because when he can
mm,
go forward, Weah can still go out wide. But one thing I definitely know, I don't want Gio Reyna to come on for Weah. Because
right.
one thing you noticed in that England game, I'll get into it when we actually go through a couple of the biggest moments. He was dropping deep. He was supposed to be playing basically as the winger, and he wasn't. So there was literally no one there anymore, and that's great for possession. But you need to stretch lines. Otherwise, Iran's going to creep up because
Yeah, made the midfield crowded.
Iran's going to play
Hmm.
with wingbacks.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same problem we had with Wales if that happens. So I don't want that to happen. Um, And I do think
Yeah.
the 4-4-2 shape would be good. It would be good to fit Gio Reyna on or Aronson on, and I think you could still keep the width, and you could still keep the back line kind of safe. Because another problem we have too is just straight up we can't play a high line, not with Tim Ream and
Zimmerman.
Zimmerman, because
Yeah.
again Iran was able to get through a couple runs. I think the red card happened because Salamoon Alisman, I can't say names. The Iran striker was able to make a run that split the Wales center backs, and I think of how we're playing with Ream and Zimmerman. That could happen too, very
Yeah,
very
I'd be
easily.
worried
So we
too.
need we need to have someone to have some recovery pace back there. That's why. So I'd like to see maybe Des kind of play safe. So you need to get the width
Yeah,
elsewhere.
because I think that's what's scary is like if Dest gets beat, then they're going to be running at Walker Zimmerman, and Walker Zimmerman is going to have to go out wide, and Tim's going to have to pinch in to help. And I don't want Iranian like wingers running at Walker Zimmerman
Nope.
with Dest up the field being beat.
Mm-mm.
That's scary. And then if they beat Zimmerman, you got Ream. I mean, so like we're good in the air with those center backs, but yeah, we're not good with pace. So yeah, I agree. I would kind of want to see Dest kind of play the way he did in England, the England game, and if you're playing McKinney kind of out wide, like you said, you can play that way because McKinney will give you that attacking win.
Yep. And McKenna was very good. There were a couple really good link ups that he had, basically with him, Dest, and Weah. We'll get into that was maybe the chance that led to him having the shot. But we'll quickly move on to England because I do want to touch up at least on their lineup, and then the game ends 0-0, but I do want to go over a couple of the chances because it kind of showcased a little bit why the game played that way. But England was Trippier, Stones, Maguire, Luke Shaw, Jude Bellingham, and Declan Rice is kind of the pivot. With Saka, I'm going to say Mason Mount played as like a 10 role. Now it was supposed to be 4-3-3. Mason Mount was basically next to Kane, Sterling, and then Kane up top. Sometimes when Kane was dropping deep, Mason Mount was almost a striker. Which ended up working out for one of their chances towards the end of the half. But for the most part, I did not think that worked out. I thought the places that Kane was receiving the ball, I think would trouble me if I'm an England fan because I think you need another striker up top if Kane's going to do that. So I mean that kind of gets into some of their issues. Um, to touch on their lineup. I understand why Southgate went with this, but at least to not change it was surprising to me. Trippier, I didn't think necessarily had his best game. I do think someone like Trent, I mean, it's going to be Homer talking. I do think Trent would have been a much harder proposition for the way that we were pressing. Trent would have been much better in his delivery decisions. I just think he because we were basically man marking England. It was relatively easy for us in our press. Uh, England were being very predictive or pragmatic. I guess is maybe a word for it. Trent would have changed that. I also think it was surprising that Foden didn't come on.
Yeah, that was shocking.
And
Because
so,
I mean, you got a fantastic player in Foden, and he doesn't even come on.
mhm,
That was very surprising for sure. Because he's a player you'd think would change the game, and he's playing better than Grealish, and he brings on Grealish instead. That was kind of bizarre for sure. But for us, I was happy because I was like, I don't want Foden running out of tired legs.
right. I mean, that was another thing too. I think it's never really good when like your quote unquote rival fan is basically cheering on what you're doing. I mean, I was cheering Southgate when he brought Henderson on and brought Grealish on.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was worried a little bit when he brought Rashford on.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we didn't necessarily see that hurt us too much. But
Mhm.
that could have been an issue. I mean, one thing I could have seen is you could have tried playing Grealish as a 10, either kept Sterling on or switch Sterling for Foden because maybe Southgate doesn't think Foden's a midfielder. Maybe he thinks he just
Yeah.
has to play further up top. But it was relatively easy for us. I thought our fullbacks did really well for Sterling and Saka.
Yeah.
That was one of my fears going into this game. To be
Yeah, we talked
honest,
about how scared we were of
yeah,
that pace,
and
and that they shut him down.
that didn't really pan out much. I mean, so the first half, I think the first chance did come to Kane. Basically, the first time England, I think it's like the 10th minute. First time England were actually able to move the ball pretty quickly to create a problem. So Stones fired in a ball to Saka, who touched it quickly to Trippier, who immediately one-timed it forward to Bellingham, uh, who goes past Robinson and is 1v1 with the team. This is kind of this is the scenario we were worried about. Saka then overlaps him, Bellingham feeds him the ball, and then Saka cuts the ball back to Kane. That Zimmerman thankfully gets a block on because that probably is a goal. But
Yeah.
Saka is only 5 yards from goal. I was amazed he didn't try to shoot it himself. Now, the way he ran to it was kind of weird, and maybe Saka doesn't have a right foot. But that was a little
Mhm.
surprising.
Yeah, he does. He does not have a right foot.
Oh, well, there you go. He is mini Salah. That's funny. Um, I mean, Zimmerman didn't have his best game possessing the ball, but he was big in moments, and this was a big block. Um,
Yeah, huge.
and then basically it was kind of our chance to have a little fun. The biggest chance I think did fall to McKinney, and I put down in the script. I think it would have been the best score we would have scored as a team, because it had everything but the finish. Musa started with the ball. He sees he can place it to Pulisic. Pulisic does a very good turn with the ball to beat Trippier, who's all over him. Pulisic then gets the ball to McKennie, who carries it upfield towards England's penalty area. McKennie then passes it back to Weah on the right side of the field near the edge of the box, but nothing's really there. So instead of just doing across to no one, we recycled possession through Tyler Adams and then Dest. Dest quickly moves the ball to McKinney again on the right side. McKinney then moves the ball backwards towards Dest. And then Dest kind of plays a very lovely split pass, basically breaking a line to Musa. And then, let's see. And then Musa kind of drives the ball towards basically the touchline. He passes it out wide to Dest again. And then Dest passes it back to Tim Weah, and that's when Weah sends the cross on. But just it was quick. It was quick movement. It was clever passing. We were doing triangles, all in England's box, and we didn't cross it in until we had the numbers advantage. And basically, McKinney just slowly, while sometimes he was passing the ball, but he was also kind of he wasn't standing still. He was quickly moving. And he was able to get himself in an area where no one was marking him, and it's a shame he didn't make that. The
Yeah,
ball bounces
God,
right before he hits it.
great chance.
But yeah, that was almost beautiful, and
Mm.
yeah,
Would have been all. Ben, I got some breaking news here. I got the lineup. Do you want me to tell you what's going on?
yeah. Let's see it.
All right, there's some crazy stuff. I think.
No for it. No for it.
All right, no Ferreira. It looks like we're going with a 4-3-3. It's the same back four except Cameron Carter-Vickers is in for Zimmerman.
That is surprising.
So yeah, we got Musa, Adams, McKennie, Pulisic, Weah, and Sargent is our striker. So
Okay.
Carter-Vickers, we want him in, and now he's got a chance. It's a little worrisome because you just throw him into this huge game where he hasn't played at all,
Hasn't gotten his feet wet.
which is very worrisome. And I don't know. I kind of want to see Aronson. Sargent's not bad. Maybe he can hold up the ball well. I don't know, but it looks like we're getting our wish with the. Well, I guess we want the 4-4-2, so we're not getting our wish with the 4-3-3. But it might be a better setup for a countering team like Iran, possibly.
A little concerned, but I do like the idea of Cameron Carter-Vickers just because in the couple games that I did watch him at Celtic, he's got pretty good recovery pace to him.
Hmm.
And
And he's a big body. So.
I think maybe Berhalter just had enough with Zimmerman towards the end when he gave the ball to Grealish.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
mean, he was such a liability. I think that maybe that was the reason why Dest was playing so deep. At times, I mentioned it was maybe
Maybe.
a back three. I thought maybe it was kind of help Zimmerman when it came to passing the ball because he would have an outlet and basically Dest would kind of be the one to decide. But maybe it was just because you needed to have someone with pace kind of next to Zimmerman because he was a liability. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I mean, Zimmerman's good in the air, but I think Carter Vickers is going to be good in the air too. So you won't necessarily lose that, and maybe you'll get a little bit more composure out of Vickers because we talked about him playing, Champions League, playing against Real Madrid, things like that. So he is a fairly experienced player, just not in this World Cup. So that's a concern is that you just throw him into the fire here. But that's how steel's made, or whatever they say.
I mean,
Throw it in the fire.
I'm weird about the 4-3 these days because I think you need what it basically comes down to is your three attacking players need to be good in 1v1s. Otherwise, you're kind of isolated. You don't really have options. You only
Yeah.
have one guy to really aim to, or you can get kind of runners from midfield. So when I see something like that, Jeremy mentioned maybe McKennie kind of being a game changer. I kind of
Mhm.
agree with him there because I think McKennie's gonna have a chance to maybe make a late run into the box, and maybe they can kind of find him that way. because I don't really
Yeah.
see Sargent as necessarily being that threat.
No.
So
He'll hold up the ball well, and he might get one chance, but just on the clinic, is that even a word? Clinicality of our strikers,
mhm.
they're going to need more than one chance to score, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll hold up the ball well, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, at least he's got some options to bring on if the game isn't going well. 0-0. We can bring on Aronson. We can bring on Gio Reyna. So that could help. We could even bring on Haji Wright. So we do have options off the bench. It seems like at least. So we can change the game that way if it's not going well, I guess.
I mean, Jeremy kind of mentioned Pepe at least maybe being an option. It's a shame we don't have that. Another thing I'm going to think about is again, why did we give Jesus Ferreira all those opportunities? And they were friendly games, so maybe they didn't count. It's hard to not be conspiratorial, thinking that this was kind of a nod to MLS. Hey, we'll let your main star, because I think he was leading goal scorer for the MLS, get all these like minutes in games that don't really matter. But by the time the show starts, I'm going to play like the actual players, which is insane
Mhm.
to me because I think you need reps.
Yeah,
Um,
me
so
too.
I don't
And you're
I
not, yeah, you're
I don't
gonna
get it.
not play like Haji Wright and then start him in the World Cup when he hasn't played.
Right.
And yeah, you're gonna give reps to someone that's not even hasn't even played a minute yet. Maybe he'll play today, and maybe we'll see him come off the bench. But yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense. I agree. You're playing with like a whole new team, and you don't have much time. So like those warm up games, like you would like to see the starters play with each other for at least a half. And with Ferreira, he was playing, and now he's not playing. It's kind of like, well, yeah, why'd you give him those minutes if you're not going to play him? But maybe it was just to see what he actually has, and maybe Berhalter was like he doesn't have enough. I don't know. But then
No,
why do you bring
it was
him instead of
all
Pepe? Yeah, it just
he
doesn't make
he
sense.
just kept starting him and starting him and starting him. So
Mhm.
I can't think he knew who he was going to play and he just wanted to give maybe see if Ferreira would work out or not. I don't
Yeah.
I don't really buy that. Another thing too is Sargent did not make our last camp. And again, I do not think it was because Berhalter was always going to pick him. Sargent was out of the team at one point. Um,
Yeah,
so because he started for us in that first game versus El Salvador, I think, and
I think so.
it didn't necessarily go well. Again, you worry a little bit because I don't think he's Berhalter gets his idea of playing with a false nine. I don't think he understands what a false nine is. It's not like you just play someone and expect you can get Firmino there.
Hmm.
Essentially, yeah, maybe for Sargent can be good at when it comes to pressing. He does make good runs off the ball. I'll give him that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I feel like Sargent needs someone next to him. I kind of mentioned that because that's what he has at Norwich.
Yeah,
Anyways,
he has Pookie next to him. Yeah,
yeah,
and
and it's
maybe
also
Weah can kind of
I
make
think
those runs
I think
for
it's
him.
good
And
to get these thoughts out there too because even if we do advance, it's going to be on the players. I'm not going to give Brohalter a ton of credit because I think he's made too many mistakes in the run up to this, and so.
Mhm.
Because I think
Yeah.
if he does advance, Fox or I don't want to call them out. U.S. media or U.S. soccer media is going to try to shower him with praise.
Hmm.
I can definitely see
Yeah.
that. So, anyways, just kind of getting that out there because as much fun as important as we made this tournament, I mean, really the big show, really in our lives, will be the one 4 years from now because
Yeah.
there's a
At
real
home.
there's a real advantage to hosting this thing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Totally.
we'll keep on with the first half with England. The next chance came with maybe Pulisic. Started with Pickford going long, Des kind of winning the aerial over Sterling. Then Hachi Wright does enough to kind of make Declan Rice uncomfortable, where Rice really can only touch the ball to a 50-50 area. Adams and McKinney kind of pinch the ball off Mason Mount. McKinney then does a spin on the ball. He carries it upfield, beating Declan Rice again. McKinney gets into England's penalty area, then cuts the ball back, plays a pass over the top to Yunus Musa. Um, Musa kind of makes a late disguised run unmarked, and then plays the ball to Pulisic, where Pulisic shifts it to his left foot and has a crack, and this hits every part of the crossbar, and just it doesn't go in.
Mm.
I was like, oh, maybe the goalie got it, and maybe Pickford got an amazing touch. No, so that was so close because it beat Pickford. If it's on goal, it's in,
Hmm.
and
It's a
that
rip too.
that was again. It kind of came from nowhere, but we were putting some really clever stuff together we weren't just going long. I mean, we were cutting through their midfield essentially, and it was Declan
Mm.
Rice, Bellingham, Mason Mount, players that are valued super high, at least in the EPL, and our midfield was superior,
Yeah.
in a lot of respects.
Yeah, that's the cool thing is, our midfield three was better than their midfield three, and their midfield three, I mean, Mount Bellingham, Rice, the combined like amount of money, if you were to buy like those three, is a crap ton of money, and Musa, McKennie, and Adams look better than they did, and I
Leeds,
think that's great too because
Leeds
they
got
could use some praise.
Leeds got an absolute steal
Mhm.
by getting
Oh
Tyler
yeah,
Adams, and I think I
he's been
think
fantastic.
now more people are starting to notice. I think English press is starting to notice Yunus Musa, which is kind
Mhm.
of I liked him kind of being a little gem because all
Mhm.
this talk about Bellingham, I'm not positive right now because I think both are 19. Yunus Musa isn't maybe a better player to go get,
Mm.
which is kind of insane because Bellingham is valued at like 150 million,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
yep. Yeah. Anyways, and
it's
then
insane.
McKennie being at Juventus is going to be a dumpster fire. Someone's going to make a go at McKennie. I think they'll get a good player.
Mhm.
I
And there
don't.
were rumors of him leaving in the summer, so yeah, maybe he wants to go.
I just
I'm sure he
think.
does, but
I just think. No one at Juventus has had a good time, so it's hard to kind of judge him on that form. I mean,
Mhm.
the player in this game, he was arguably the best player of the game. To be honest, there was a lot of talk with Adams and a couple others, but McKinney was fantastic at going forward, and really
Yeah.
causing England fits. And it's
Mhm.
kind of funny how all the talk afterwards has been, oh, how do you get Gio Reyna or Brendan Aronson, and everyone's kind of looked at McKinney. And McKinney was player of the game for this, in my opinion. So it's kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate, but just kind of the way it goes, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe if he makes that chance, then he gets more plaudits if he scores that chance. But
True.
yeah, I mean, he's very good, and he's not necessarily going to score a lot or get assists. So like he will do that dirty work, and he won't necessarily get on the score sheet. But I think he deserves some plaudits for And Adams is the same way. Maybe even Musa too, where they might not necessarily score, but they're just going to work tirelessly in that midfield, and that's what keeps that engine, the USA engine, going.
Yep. And so one of the final chances came England's way. It was really the one time that basically Matt Turner was kind of threatened, at least in that first half, and it came from England playing quickly. So that was kind of basically the two chances that they got, they were able to kind of play quickly.
Hmm.
So I think that's maybe something for Southgate to look at. But they get the ball from the wing to the central part of the field, where Sterling basically one timed it ahead to Mason Mount, and he's outside the box, but Mount gets a good shot on it. Maybe if it's at the post, it threatens a little bit more, but it was close enough to Turner where Turner shouldn't have been beaten, and he wasn't. But it was a good
Yeah.
dive, and it was a good save. But again,
Hmm.
I think the problem from England is it was Mount that was getting that look, not Kane.
Hmm. Yeah, Mount dropping really deep, but Kane dropping even deeper than Mount at times.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of pause it right there? I mean, what were your first thoughts on the first half?
I was really happy. I didn't want halftime to end because we had all that momentum, and the Wales game was fresh in my mind too. So I was worried that it was kind of it could be the same thing where we did really well in the first half, and then we come out and we don't play that well in the second half.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was nervous because we were playing so well. I didn't want halftime to come because of that. That Wales game was in my mind still. Um, but we were playing so well, but I was still doubtful that we would actually score in the match.
Hmm.
I mean, we did have some good chances to be honest, but yeah, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with the team having to score because they just don't really score. But I felt really good about our defense. Felt really good about our midfield. It was just a question of can we come out and play, put two halves together and play hard like we did in the first half, and how many chances would our strikers have, and could they take a chance? Could McKennie take a chance? Could Pulisic take a chance? A little bit of class in the box. But yeah, I mean, I was feeling good about it. I'm always good when our defense is playing well, and we're kind of nullifying Saka and Sterling. I was feeling really good at halftime, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I basically kind of share the same thoughts. You worried that basically it was going to be a repeat of Wales. You worried not necessarily taking the chances. Um, I don't know. We'll kind of quickly run down to the chances in the second half, and then kind of maybe close up shot. You mentioned you didn't want to necessarily go too long. Um, Really, the second chance or the second half, it wasn't like Wales. We had more of the chances, which was a nice surprise to be honest. So it
It
started off with
was.
Haji Wright. He didn't get many looks, but I think he did well here to time his run to stay onside. Got the ball from Bolisic. He was basically he got the ball from the wing, but he cut inside the box and tried he gave an effort. He was blocked, but I thought he did well to create the opportunity for himself, and so it looks like maybe maybe we won't necessarily see him today, or maybe will come off the bench. But I think in that little cameo, he did show something. So at
Yeah.
least if nothing else, it was good for him because I don't want to say it was necessarily his fault, but I was just questioning why pick him over Pepe. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
and then really the one time where I was really concerned was Anthony Robinson got caught too high upfield gambling when we had the ball. I think Pulisic is basically the one that loses it. So it allows Saka to get the ball in the wing and from the halfway line and basically dribble all the way up to the penalty area because we had absolutely no one else. And then it's only the chances only stopped because of a very good slide tackle by Tyler Adams, who was able to kick the ball out of bounds. But there were a couple of times when Mason Mount was in areas where they could have been threatening as well. But his first touch kind of let him down. So I think you saw that here as well. And there were a couple
Mhm.
of times where it seemed Saka maybe could have been a little bit more threatening or more inviting to take chances on. And it seemed he was a little
Yeah.
hesitant too. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that.
which from our perspective, you know, I applaud. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because
Heck yeah.
because there was a chance where I think he could have maybe tried to run at Tim Ream and he just kind of slowed down. That allowed Tyler Adams to get back. Um, but then again, basically it was kind of our chance to have I want to say 5 maybe 8 minutes of fun, uh, where we had a number of corner kicks in succession. We had England absolutely pinned deep in their own area. They could not get out. And Harry Maguire was just unfortunately heading the ball away every single turn. It felt like he had like 4 headers in a row, and just
Yeah.
Pulisic had better delivery, but he just couldn't beat Harry Maguire, and it was just annoying that we couldn't try to find a way to take him out. Maybe kind of crowd him a little bit, foul him,
Yeah.
something.
Because
Um,
that's his bread and butter. Like McGuire's happy if you're playing in the air because that's what he's so good at. And if you actually challenge his pace, that's where he's going to be uncomfortable.
yep. And it's just probably the best look we had was when Pulisic did finally send the ball a little deeper into the field, where it looked like Zimmerman was going to have an absolute free header. I want to say like 2 feet from goal, and again, just McGuire just at the last second was able to get that giant melon of his on the ball. But other than that, that was really all we were able to do. We didn't necessarily. You mentioned the one shot on target. We weren't really able to threaten Pickford at all, other than that maybe Pulisic chance. And the closest we got were so many. It was either efforts that were blocked or just crosses that were just kind of knocked away. England
Yeah,
were good defending us when we
they
were in the
were.
final third. So
Yeah, yeah. We outshot England 10-8, but they outshot us on shots on target 3-1. So just more of the. I mean, you got to put some of these away, or at least in this Iran game, because if we tie or if we lose, even, I think we'll be comparable with them in shots, Iran, but it'll probably be not too many shots on target, and that might be why we lose. It might come down to our strikers either not getting enough chances or just not being clinical.
I just want that. I don't. We don't. I shouldn't. I should be careful what I say. But if we do like happen to draw or maybe even lose, I mean, obviously that'll suck. But I want us to get. I want us to go for everything. I want us to have 20 shots.
Mhm.
We haven't. We've been hesitant this entire tournament. Now I get you have to play defensively because of what's behind you. But with Cameron Carter Vickers, with the little recovery pace, maybe you can get those midfielders higher upfield. Maybe you can get the fullbacks in the attack a little bit more. So I want to see that.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
And hopefully, yeah, you Pestophel. Yeah, I was like,
that's
what?
that's
The
embarrassing.
undefeated season.
So I've got to hang it up on tape. I need to get some new sticky thing
Oh, 3M hooks. Yeah, those are the
to put
shit.
it up. I was like, what was that?
Yeah, I thought it was me for a like, I thought it was something in my room, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Alright, and one thing I do want to say is nothing came from this, but one of the few bright spots that did happen was when Gio Reyna turned on the ball, bodied Jack Grealish, so showed really good ball retention when being pressed. That's another thing too. I've noticed a lot of our guys are very good being pressured. That's
Yeah.
not the problem. It's just when teams are sitting back, when
Mhm.
you've got to make decisions. That's been the issue. But
Yeah.
Reyna was threatening. He had made a run into the box, and then he tried to play in Sargent, making a clever run in between Harry Maguire and Shaw, and it wasn't timed right. I think it was behind
Mhm.
Sargent, but it was just if that so it was just a little off. But had that pass been on, Sargent would have been through, and it's clever things like that that we've been missing. So if Jay Reyna does come on, that is something that he can offer.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess that's a good part about not starting Aronson and Reyna is you do have that ammo kind of for later use. And Reyna and Aronson running at tired Iranian defenders is definitely something that would, potentially get us a goal in a 0-0 game. So at least we do have those kind of game breakers on the bench. But it could backfire if we end up losing. Then the questions are, maybe Aronson should have started, maybe Gio should have started. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be really interesting, and man, I'm incredibly nervous about it.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I do want to get this out there. Maybe the reason why Berhalter has switched Zimmerman out is England was able to get a chance in the 92nd minute because we gave the ball away. Jay ran a pass the ball to Zimmerman. Mason Mount kind of sprinted towards him. Zimmerman freaked out and then played a very poor ball that was intercepted by Grealish. And then Musa fouled Grealish, giving England a pretty dangerous set piece opportunity. And Shaw put in a pretty good delivery. Yeah, I was making fun of Roberto Carlos, and that was quite good. Harry Kane met every part of it with his head, and just for Turner's sake, it wasn't on goal because I think there's so much power on it. I don't think Turner's getting a chance if that's
No.
somewhat on goal.
Yeah. Yeah, because it went over, and even still, it was so fast that Turner was late to react to get his hands up. So I think it would have beaten him just by pure pace if it was on frame.
Right, it almost seemed like Turner had no chance to react.
Hmm.
Really, we got away with one, and maybe that was just kind of Zimmerman's last chance because it was good for him to kind of bounce back. He did have that big block on Kane, but almost two times we almost cost the team because he did have the PK
Yeah.
for Wales. So yeah, so I'm interested. I'm very shocked that Berhalter has actually made that change. So I will say good for him. Um,
Yeah. And part of me feels bad for Zimmerman because he did play really well in the air, but obviously, like you mentioned, some of those mistakes have cost us, especially the PK. So yeah, I think Berhalter's just like we don't want a mistake to cost us in a game where the winner moves on, loser goes home.
and another thing to kind of say, just before we end is, what did you think about the end on what we did? Because we had a chance to maybe send the ball in, and kind of maybe try something similar, and instead we passed the ball to Gio Reyna to the sideline. Weren't able to get any kind of delivery in, and the game ended. It was
Mm.
almost like we're just gonna the game's over. We'll take the point and walk home. I mean, did you understand that? I mean, obviously you don't want to allow any kind of counter on you, but it was kind of
Mm.
cowardly. I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to be like, "Hey, we want this win," but maybe like the Zimmerman mistake and the foul, and then Kane almost scoring. Maybe that kind of gave the message to the team that okay, let's just get a tie. We could still concede and lose, and
Mhm.
be in big trouble. So yeah, maybe it was just that kind of warning shot late on that kind of had the team be like, all right, let's just keep the ball in England's half, and just get out of here with a draw.
And so we've talked a lot about the U.S. Let's spend a little time talking about England because um, it, I thought Southgate got the lineup wrong. I thought he maybe got his subs wrong. Um, again, it reminded me similar to a thought I had watching them in the Euros. Now, what's funny is this kind of football has worked for them. They made the finals versus Italy, and only lost on PKs, and then made the semis versus Croatia 4 years ago. But when it comes down to when they have to when they have to pass through a midfield, it seems like they struggle. So
Mhm.
one thing I've kind of tweeted about in the past is their passing patterns are basically like, someone trying to lose weight going to the grocery store. The aisles are safe, but you avoid the middle, where the processed stuff is at all cost. And it felt like that's what they were doing. They weren't able to. They were trying to feed Rice the ball, but he was the only option, and they weren't able to really kind of progress through the middle. It was everything was to the wide areas, or there were long balls, long diagonal balls. Maybe trying to get Sterling or Saka the ball.
Mhm.
But I think you and one of the ones that really suffers from that is Harry Kane, because Harry Kane can't get the ball in the middle. That's the reason why he has to drop back so much.
Yeah.
So I don't know how Southgate necessarily solves that, because you look at what someone like Madison would maybe fix this, but
Mhm. Yeah, Madison could fix that.
or
Yeah.
maybe a phone. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold would have been someone to maybe do this too, but it's just
Mhm.
again it's give and take, because he hasn't necessarily been spot on defensively this tournament. Now that said, you were going against Christian Pulisic; he wasn't going to beat you for pace on a counter. So I think
Yeah.
that was maybe a mistake, but that is what it is.
Mhm. Yeah, and not playing Foden is weird. Not even playing him at all. But
Hmm.
he's starting today, Foden, and Walker is back too. So no Trent Alexander Arnold again, which is kind of weird because like a year ago you'd be like, yeah, he's a must start at right back, and now he can't even get a game, which is weird because I mean I know he's had his defensive issues this year, but he's so good going up the pitch. He's good at set piece deliveries. He's good at a lot of things, and to not like see him come on at all, it's just kind of weird. And it kind of seems like maybe England, maybe Southgate was fine with the point too at some point, and was like, hey, Trent Alexander Arnold could give up a goal. We don't really need that attack right now. We're fine at 0-0. I don't know, but
There's something
I'm
weird with
glad Foden's
Southgate.
starting at least.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, yeah.
because I don't think he would have made the team had Reece James been not hurt.
You know
Um,
what? Yeah, which
so
would be, I mean, a year ago that'd be unthinkable. You know,
yeah,
I mean, he's like penciled in,
a year ago, people were
first name
talking.
on there.
A year ago,
Yeah,
people were talking about him as World 11
so weird.
at that
Hmm.
position.
And I think
So
it's just a dip. It's just and again, it's the defense, not necessarily his attacking prowess that suffered this year. And I think he'll be back, and maybe not playing here in the World Cup will be a motivating factor. And I do think he'll bounce back.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talks that Klopp's going to maybe play him differently. Now, having Kanate back, not to necessarily focus on Liverpool, that'll change how they're necessarily vulnerable on the right side as well. Sometimes I feel like he's maybe just been overplayed. So frankly, him not playing, he's getting a rest here. I'm okay with that
Yeah,
too.
and he won't get
Um,
hurt. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, it's just
yeah, I definitely get
it's not
that.
enough to be hurt. I mean, you can either have a heavy legs. You can have a heavy mind.
Mhm.
I think some kind of a break is just good in
Yeah,
general. I'm interested. I'm very curious to see how how Salah is gonna come back, because he
right.
hasn't had a break in like 3 years. So,
He's probably loving the break right now.
but we mentioned how it's similar to England, how England were over Scotland in Euros, and they were able to bounce back, make the finals. But when it came down to it, they weren't. They were when they finally faced a midfield that was able to kind of keep the ball. That was good at cutting the passing lanes out. It was Italy, and they weren't necessarily able to break them down, other than getting the early
Right.
goal. I remember in that final, Southgate's only change was Henderson again, which is similar. And
Mhm.
he waited till like I don't know the 90th minute or so, and then the only subs he made after that were PK decisions, which
Right.
was weird too. So I think it was just interesting how it's not the England side that we saw versus Iran. It's more the Nations League England that went 6 games scoreless. And yeah, it's the England that Harry Kane can only get 2 shots all game. And if that's
Yeah.
the case, I don't think they're going to sniff semis or finals. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, through 2 games, they're very really streaky 2 games, so I guess maybe we'll learn a little bit more in this 3rd game here. But yeah, I would kind of tend to agree. Yeah, maybe getting out of the group, sure, maybe even winning, the first knockout game, but that even that is a bit of a stretch at this point with some of these other teams playing better than England, at least in the 2nd game.
I mean, it'll definitely. It, I can't say Wales are going to get necessarily get something, but Wales can have an opportunity to maybe make things ugly too.
Yeah.
And again, if they don't, if England aren't able to necessarily get something early to maybe force Wales out, uh,
Yeah, they kind of do what Iran did to them.
it's possible that could
Wales
be
could
a
do to
low.
England.
It's possibly that could be a low scoring game where England's fate might not necessarily be decided by the 85th minute. Um,
Right. Yeah, it could be like a hopeful ball to Kiefer Moore who scores, or a through ball to a pacey Dan James, something like that. And if you keep it 0-0, just one moment of brilliance, Wales could take the points. And if Wales beat England and we won, we would actually win the group, which would be incredible. Because then we wouldn't play Netherlands,
right,
which
and
would be
that's kind
awesome.
of that's what I'm getting at. If England have to play
Hmm.
Netherlands for the next game, I'm canceling them out. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think I would too because Gakpo scored again today. He's on fire. And I don't think anyone can really stop him, especially not Stones and McGuire probably. But
and Van Gaal is very good at defensively too. And I
Mhm.
think I think Netherlands actually beat England in like the Nations League like in like 2019, but again that was a while ago. Um, I mean, what kind of I mean, do you have any positives or negatives that you've kind of
Ooh.
maybe thought last minute or
I always my negative is I feel like a broken record because it's just the same thing. It's our strikers,
Mhm.
and again, it's I guess it's more the service or lack of service to our strikers that is a problem. And they're going to have to be clinical, or they're going to have to get more chances and put more on target, or we're just going to have Pulisic. He hit the bar. Maybe we get a little bit of luck, and it's a good shot that is on target and is a goal, or maybe we have another like McKennie chance and he actually buries it. But I get worried when like our strikers aren't going to score. I kind of tend to worry about where the goals are coming, and like Pulisic can grab on, Weah can grab on, but like if we have to score more than one goal, I start to get worried because again, like if the striker's not going to score, there's only so many like spots where we have like goal scorers,
yeah.
because like our midfield they can create and they work hard, but they're not necessarily goal scorers. So like if the strikers aren't going to score, where are the goals going to come from? So that's why I think it's kind of going to be a 1-0 game, and maybe like Pulisic scores or something like that.
One thing that would be interesting is Chelsea fans that I follow have been very critical of Pulisic for his time there. Now, maybe that's unwarranted in in some respects, but maybe not. One thing that one theme that they've always said is Pulisic when he has space is very very good. Pulisic when he's in tight areas is not.
Mhm.
And you think of how if Iran's going to play in a block, you kind of worry a little bit about that because I for as good as he was versus England, there were a couple times when he did lose the ball, basically in the middle of the field too. When he was kind of
Mhm.
creeping up, he wasn't really playing on the wing. That's
Yeah.
another issue I have with the 4-3-3. Pulisic plays centrally. Essentially, he leaves that wing spot, and so that exposes you. That exposes your fullback, and it exposes your midfielder. That's on that side because he has to go back, and what that's going to do is that's going to make Tyler Adams kind of play by himself. So it'll probably be Musa. It'll be a lot of more defensive work from Musa if we do play this formation. Unfortunately, so
Maybe he
that's
won't
what
get up the pitch as much.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about. He's not going to do it, but Pulisic has played both 90 minutes. I would bring Aronson on for Pulisic
Yeah.
as my change, and maybe
Mhm.
if McKennie isn't working, play Giorena on the right side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can
I would
still
agree.
find a way to fit both of them on.
Mhm. Yeah, especially if you need a goal at 0-0, throw them on, and we think they can impact the game, in a positive sense for sure.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean that you're gonna have to fit them in, and Berhalter's probably gonna have to take off a really good player to put in one of these guys. So he's got to have the courage to do it.
And if since Berhalter's, he's showing some faith in playing guys he hasn't played yet with Cameron Carter Vickers. If Dest has to go off, maybe he's fatigued again. Maybe he has maybe he has an injury. I do not want to see Shaq Moore as the replacement. I want to see Scaly
Yeah, me
because
too.
I
Me
did
too.
not think Shaq Moore. The difference in quality between Moore and Dest was so significant, and it
Mhm.
almost cost us. He had a couple.
And Scally's played more on the U.S. team too. It's another one of those things where it's like he's got more reps. You would think he would be the one to come in over Moore, just because Moore hasn't necessarily played a lot with the U.S. team. Scally hasn't necessarily either, but he's played more than Moore has.
I did not agree with that decision versus England, and I didn't think I think we got lucky. There was a chance when Rashford had the ball kind of at the edge of the box, and Moore was giving him all the space in the world to kind of get a shot off, and he did get a shot off, and thankfully it just went straight to Turner. But I
Yeah.
didn't think he looked ready. Um, so
Mhm.
little worried about that. But all that said, we we have a lot to look forward to. We'll try to not be as negative. Try to give uh, uh, try to send off or lead off with some positive thoughts, maybe or some yeah. So I
Yeah, I
mean,
hope so.
because the game starts in maybe basically 30 minutes or so. Wild to see the lineup. It is a little different. Overall, I think it has been a pretty good World Cup for us. But unfortunately, a lot can change in a game.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, it's
one
all in this last
the
game.
one
If we
negative.
win, it's been a great World Cup. If we lose, it's been bad.
I think over 2 games, I think we've only had maybe 3 shots on goal. Um,
Yeah. I think it's
so
2. I think it's 1 each game, and maybe it is
maybe
3.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So,
so
I mean, we
that's
gotta we gotta get them on target, or we gotta have more chances.
and it's kind of unfortunate because that was a big talking point going into this tournament, and yeah, it's kind of born to fruition. And it's
Yeah.
funny how I think Haji Wright is basically our only striker. Again, like Sargent and Ferreira, quote unquote, false nines. They aren't.
Yeah.
And we left two away. So, anyways, hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us. But, anyways, I do want to thank you again for for doing this again, Rex, and we want to thank Jeremy as well. Hopefully we'll get to talk about it again. Maybe not necessarily a week from now because that'll feel like ages. Um, because it is
Well, if
kind of fun.
USA lose, but if
Oh,
they win, yeah,
maybe that.
we'd definitely have to talk again before the game.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, because I don't know when the next game would be if we did advance. It might even be before next Tuesday.
Because I think Friday is the last group stage round, right?
It could be
I
Monday or
think.
Tuesday then.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably would be. So,
So
hmm.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do both.
Yeah,
It's enough to
no.
kind of do it this way. But anyways, I think that's all I have to say. Bex, you got any closing thoughts?
Oh no, just really nervous. Really worried. Couldn't sleep last night. It's all the pressure. I can't imagine how the players feel. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready for it. I really hope we win. I think if we win, I'm just going to be a little bit more relaxed because I think we kind of talked about it. Like we just want to get out of the group stage. From there, it's kind of free play. And
Hmm.
again, just if we get that extra game or possibly even more, it's just more experience for these guys coming into the World Cup 3.5 years from now in the United States. The more games they get in, the more they play, the more experience they get, the better they're going to be next World Cup when we're hosting. So yeah, man, just I'm hopeful, really nervous. It's going to be a nervy game. I plan on eating a couple bags of chips probably during it, just nervous
Excellent.
eating.
I'll I've got. I usually have a little afternoon cup of coffee, but the last couple of times I've done that with Liverpool, it's kind of gotten my heart a little bad. So maybe I'll just have a little ginger ale or something. I don't know. Um,
White Claw.
oh no,
Too early? Too early? Too early.
maybe too. Well, if they're winning, maybe after maybe a little celebration afterwards. We'll see.
Oh, hell yeah, actually, yeah.
So, I mean, one thing I do want to say to kind of close on is kind of mentioned how it is just wild to me to watch the midfield that we're able to at least put out there. Now that's before the subs because it wasn't too long ago where we were playing Christian Roldan, Graham Zusi, Jackson Yule. We tried him. Sebastian Legit, I think was a player. I
Yeah.
remember we had Ricardo Clark who played, who like got a red card like the first minute of the game in like a big knockout game in a World Cup, and it's just we really have at least somewhat arrived in that part of the field.
Mhm.
And so
Definitely.
if only we can
And it
just
looks
kind
like the
of
defense is kind of right behind them too. That's getting better. We just
Turner
at
looks
times just
legit,
need a striker. Yeah,
right?
Turner's good.
So it really does feel it's not just hype. It really does feel we're close. So just kind of hoping we can more games that we're able to kind of play, get some of that experience, and kind of just kind of grow something here. And you fear that you don't want an opportunity to kind of miss you. and
Yeah.
that's what these players have. So we'll see. We'll see if it works out.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that said, for us at the reserve squad, stay squatty
Stay squatty. Let's go USA. Come on.
and recording.